The study of humanity has long been the center of philosophical and scientific inquiry. Traveling around the earth, we see creations of human cultures that always amaze us, even after repeated viewings. They are the emblem of humanity. But the big questions are, what made those things happen, and how the nature of human intelligence explain their creation? In the past thousands of years, philosophers have been raising questions and giving answers regarding this issue. And the core interests of the study are what we see, how we communicate, and what the cognitive process and epistemological state that we have. We can directly observe and measure how humans cooperate to combine forces and solve complex problems. Historically, humans and our ancestors started from small groups of hunter-gatherers. Through the process of knowledge accumulation, new cultural creations were made upon the legacies of previous generations. Later, we built pyramids, created religious systems that gave explanations to metaphysical questions, and even worshiped pure and transcendental wisdom as the ultimate happiness of humans. In the process of cultural evolution, the ability to communicate has been advanced. From the simplest pointing, gaze following, and iconic gesturing in the shared intentionality framework to the ritualized communicative systems involving arbitrary cultural creations like conventional sign and colloquial language. Besides, archaeological and ethnographic evidence show that biological evolution and cultural evolution are indeed deeply intertwined. Ever since the emergence of Homo sapiens, we observed a rapid extension of cooperation from a simple and context-restricted form to an entrenched and encompassing scope. Theoretically, cultural group selections facilitate the speed of this process. In the past centuries, we observed the cultural creations that facilitate more efficient cooperation quickly spread across the globe, replacing and merging with those that are less efficient. To cover the starting point of all of this, we need to focus on the evolution of social intelligence, and the main focus of this quest is on primates, because many non-human primates are like humans, as they also live in the social groups where they cooperate intensively with non-related friends. For instance, if we compare the primates that cooperate closely with their kins versus those cohabited with the nonkins, we would observe the huge contrast of poor sociality. When it comes to being disadvantageously treated, the primates living in groups of closely related members, like common marmosets, react indifferently, while macaques and chimpanzees closely cooperate with non-related peers, sometimes protest and reject the unfair treatment. And this aversion has also been more consistently and robustly identified in children at a very young age. However, when it comes to be advantageously but unequally treated, neither common marmosets nor macaques and chimpanzees show aversion. However, human infants at an older age reject the offer and insist on equality, especially when repeated and reciprocal cooperation are expected. Even in ultimatum games, older children and adults even incur costs to punish those who are not acting fairly, suggesting our predisposition to maintaining efficient cooperation. Finally, when it comes to altruistic helping, chimpanzees often act poorly and respond randomly when there is no salient request. On the other hand, starting from a very young age, human infants are capable of inferring others' needs and cooperative intention, often without the need of perceiving salient requests. Whenever altruistic helping requires delivering the food within their control to others, chimpanzees often act poorly. But young infants not only offer the food altruistically, but also often spontaneously bring the appropriate tool and fill the complementary role in complex cooperations upon perceiving even subtle need of others. In fact, newborn chimpanzees show interest in the social interactions with their mothers or human keepers by imitating their facial expressions like mouth opening and tongue and lip protruding, where human newborns engage in a larger repertoire of neonatal imitation with others, also known as proto-conversation. A bigger difference emerged after young chimpanzees and human infants gained certain degrees of sensory motor skills. The possession of sufficient sensory motor ability allows human infants to proactively approach and engage in social interactions with preferred social partners, especially those who are fair and engaging. However, young chimpanzees mainly rely on their mother to make judgments when it comes to the tasks that are deprived of complex intention and emotion reading, such as keeping up with the mother pace of traveling. Upon seeing someone, monkeys may infer limitedly, but chimpanzees and humans are cognitively inclined to link the present perception to its contingency. Thus, after subsequently seeing a piece of food, though monkeys may also find there is a connection between the individual and the food, chimpanzees and humans would infallibly infer that the intentional state of the individual is to retrieve that food. However, the epistemological scope of humans are certainly much bigger in degree than that of chimpanzees, because humans but not chimpanzees and monkeys spontaneously know what others want to know, thereby possessing a belief about others that expand and update rapidly and flexibly. This has been explained by the human unique possession of shared intentionality and birth as view. If we imagine the scope of knowing in a three-dimensional space, the x-axis represents space and y-axis time. Positive quantity are in the present reality, while negative quantity represent past events in the memory or imagined places. So that a narrow knowing scope that focuses only on the present and concrete perception occupies only a small proportion of the three-dimensional space. The evolutionary ability to incorporate past experience and infer causally, the scope of knowing quickly expands to knowing abstractly, involving both the exertion of memory and imagination. Moreover, the incorporation of other scope of knowing in the shared intentionality framework, or through learning cultural heritage, expand human epistemological scope to an astronomical size. The form of cognitive cooperation, the views of humans combine the forces where time and space are no longer unsurpassable obstacles. Finally, the process of biological evolution and cultural evolution are deeply intertwined. Not only were our ancestors capable of using tools and cooperating with nonkins, but for survival, they evolved a greater tolerance with each other over food. They worked in complementary roles when cooperating, and evolved moral sentiments and reasoning to scaffold cooperation that are larger and more flexible. As cultural group selection started, the creation that facilitated more efficient and flexible cooperation spread, replacing and merging with less efficient ones. Biologically, this process is accompanied with the emergence of adaptations that advance human cognition to incorporating a greater scope of knowing and facilitating appropriate social and moral reasoning. Thus, as an academic pursuit, studying the evolution of human prosociality can indeed shed light on unraveling the maze of human cognition. First, systematic studies that involves experimental paradigm has not been used in studying neonatal imitation in chimpanzees and humans, because the self-other differentiation has not been fully developed in newborns. It would be fruitful to know how much more cognitively and affectively gifted humans are initially in the development than our great ape cousin. Second, in addition to the traditional experimental paradigms, the mother-infant interactions in chimpanzees may also reveal both their understanding of intention and the contingency and contexts that facilitate second-person cognitive perspective taking. Finally, although previous studies did a good job on studying the roles of food, tools, and requests in eliciting or obstructing prosocial behaviors, little is known about the role of food tolerance and the contingencies that elicit prosociality and second-person punishment.